Hello, dear learners. I hope you all are doing absolutely great. I welcome you once again to this MOOC on population and society. In the previous week, that is week 4, we have discussed the different measures of fertility, mortality, and migration. In this week, we shall be discussing the different theoretical perspective on population growth and changes. This is the first video of the week, and in this video we shall be discussing the module 13 of the MOOC, which has been titled as Malthusian Theory of Population. You all know that Malthusian theory is one of the most important theories of population, and we hope that you shall be able to get an overview of this theory in this video. The objective of the module are: this module shall enable you to translate what is a population theory, understand the Malthusian theory of population and its major arguments, know about the criticisms leveled against the Malthusian theory of population. Now let us discuss the Malthusian theory of population in details. Malthus has been regarded as a pioneer in determining the doctrine of different theories of population studies. While his predictions were based on the idea that population would outstrip resources, subsequent theories have expanded and refined these ideas. Dear learners, we have discussed in the earlier modules, specifically in module 1 and 2, that population studies have always attracted various academic disciplines, especially the discipline which are related with social sciences. Throughout most of the human history, societies favor large families, since human labor was the key to productivity. In the early part of the history of human civilization, the human population was in a balancing mode of the high rate of birth rate, which was accompanied by a high rate of death rate. We all know that, right? That is why the world population was about less than 100 million at the dawn of the human civilization, with the balancing act between rate of birth and rate of death. Currently, the world population is increasing nearly about 90 million people each year, with more than 90% of the growth are from the relatively poorer areas of the world. In this trend, if we go on without a change in global consumption and living patterns, this increase will have a basic social and environmental consequences. For this reason, a number of scholars have reflected on these changes and its impact on the potential population growth. This module will focus on the theoretical orientation of Thomas Robert Malthus. Please remember the name. Thomas Robert Malthus, who developed to study the various issues related with population dynamics. In this discussion, we will give a detailed analysis of Malthusian theoretical doctrine on population dynamics. But dear learners, before going to discussion on Malthusian perspective, let us first try to understand what is population theory. Now let us discuss what is population theory. Dear learners, do you know what is theory? There are definite definitions, various definitions, but in a very generic way we can say that a theory is a statement of how and why specific facts are related. It is the abstract generalization of concrete realities. A theory is an account of the world which goes beyond what we can see and what we can measure. It embraces a set of interrelated definitions and relationships that organize our concepts and understand of the empirical world in a very systematic way. Since the beginning of the history of the human civilization, different scholars and thinkers have concerned themselves with the various questions rising around various dynamics of population studies. Different opinions have been occurred regarding the size and the growth of human population, as the concept of human population is loaded with multidimensional analysis. A large and rapidly growing population has sometimes been supported by scholars and considered desirable in a nation's strength and wealth as an essentiality, useful factor underlying technological development. On the other hand, some scholars have argued that a large population has been responsible towards the increasing poverty and such catastrophes such as wars, famines, and epidemics. The size and growth of population has been viewed as an important factor underlying the development of any country. That is why it is very important to trace the development of the thinking of scholars and different points of views expressed by them with respect to population dynamics within the socio-economic and political context. In ancient time, several thinkers have studied regarding the size of the population, and their studies were revolving around the question of the desirable size of the population. It was very difficult to exactly measure which one is the desirable size of population. At that time, it was very confusing to determine the exact quantifiable amount of the desirable population, as I have already mentioned. Their studies were either favoring a large and huge population or favoring a comparatively lower population. The basis for such concern regarding a desirable size of population was mainly for practical, covering military, political, social, and economic issues, and usually led to the formation of specific public policies. But these thinkers and thinkings were never solidified into proper theoretical orientation on population studies. The population theories with a proper theoretical orientation have been emerged in the 18th century when the work of Thomas Robert Malthus was published. The Malthusian theory of population has been regarded as a pioneer in determining the trend of the difficult theoretical doctrines of population studies. So Malthus can be regarded as the pioneer. So dear learners, from the discussion, you must have got a brief idea regarding what is a population theory and what is the background of the origin of the population theory. I hope you all have got this point. Let us now discuss theoretical orientation of Malthus on the growth of human population and its critical evaluation. So, published in the year 1798, please remember the year 1798, the book Essay on the Principle of Population can be termed as the founding base for different theoretical orientation towards the population dynamic. And do you know who is the writer of the book? Yes, you are right. You have guessed it right. That is Thomas Robert Malthus, an English clergyman and economist who has been regarded as a pioneer in the field of theoretical orientation on population studies, as we have already mentioned. This identification of Malthus as a clergyman is very important because in his theoretical doctrines, this identity has been reflected in various aspects. So whenever we will go into details, we will get a glimpse of the clergyman that Robert Malthus was in his earlier days. The Malthus' father was a liberal English landowner and a close friend of philosopher Rousseau, educated his own son until went to Cambridge. There Malthus was appointed a fellow in 1793, and in 1979 he took holy order to qualify as a clergyman. So he was a theorist, but he have taken the holy order to qualify as a clergyman. This point is very important. In the year 1805, he became professor of history and political economy at the East India Company College at Haileybury. He was father of 3 children who died in the 1834. So why this introduction is important? While we are analyzing any theory, any kind of theory, it is very important to know the time, space and context at which these theories have propounded by their different theoretical orders. So at that time, why this kind of ideas have been developed by Malthus? While we will go into details, you will get the glimpse. In the book, Malthus engaged with the debate about the perfectibility of humankind. Against the previous approaches forwarded by scholars like Godwin and Condorcet, who believed that human race was capable of ever greater improvement and happiness, Malthus, on the other hand, pointed out the pressure and difficulties for the human race arising from the increasing population and the food supply for them. According to Malthus, the pressure of increasing population on the food supply would destroy perfection of humankind and there would be misery and the world. So, Malthus was trying to establish a relationship between food supply and population growth. Thus, Malthus' theory of population is based on the following 3 postulates. Please remember these 3 postulates. So, learners, I hope you are getting my points. So, Malthus was trying to establish a relationship between food supply and the population growth. He was a clergyman. Please remember this point. So, his theories were based on 3 postulates. First, food is essential for man's existence. Second postulate, the passion between sexes is essential and it will nearly remain in its present state. And third, the law of diminishing returns operate in agriculture. So what is these postulates? First one is food is essential for man's existence. We cannot deny that how crucial food is for human civilization. Without food, we cannot survive, right? So food is very, very essential. And how human civilization is existing throughout these years, we have to accept the importance of food supply in this whole existence of human civilization. The passion between sexes is essential. Why this passion between sexes is essential? Because with these sexual orientations, human reproduce, right? So through this reproduction, human population increases. And at the last postulate, law of diminishing returns, which operates in agriculture. So the law of diminishing returns suggests that as more and more output has been used in a particular constant land, the productivity of that land will diminish over the years. So from the postulate, Malthus deducted this conclusion that, I am going to quote Malthus here, the power of population is indefinitely greater than the power in art to produce a subsistence, which is food for man. And if the increasing population is not being able to check by the preventive check or measures, it will bring to vice or misery for the humankind. So we have to control the population. If we don't control, it will have an effect on the food supply. The population will increase, but it will not be increased in the same rate with the food supply, and it will lead to vice or misery for humankind. The Malthusian theory has been discussed in detail in the following points. So let us discuss Malthusian theory through these following points. There is a natural sex instinct in human beings which lead to the increase of human population at a fast rate, right? So, according to Malthus, human population increases in a geometrical rate or ratio. What is this geometrical rate? This geometrical rate means human population increases in a faster rate. If this increasing rate is not checked, it will lead to double rate of increase after every 25 years. So after every 25 years, the population will be double. Thus, starting from the population in successive period of 25 years will be like 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, like this. It is actually a geometric rate. So basically, in a very generic way, I am saying that according to Malthus, human population increases in a geometrical rate, and if this rate is not controlled, after every 25 years it will be doubled. On the other hand, very important point, food supply increases in a slow arithmetic rate or ratio. It is because of the operation of the law of diminishing return based on the supposition that the supply of land is always constant or fixed, right? You cannot increase the size of the land. In fact, size of the land is decreasing. So, food supply are, where we are going for food supply? In a land. But the supply of land is constant. We cannot increase the size of the land. So, what will happen? It will have an impact on the food supply, because suppose in a constant amount of land, we are producing 25 tons of agricultural food. If we constantly going for the agricultural output in that particular land, this 25 ton will be decreased, right? 25 ton will be decreased to 20 ton, 20 ton will decrease to 15 ton. Like this, it will decrease, right? That was the point of concern for Malthus. That is why he had suggested that we have to control the population rate, right? So, since population increases in a geometrical progression and the food supply in a arithmetical progression, population tends to outcome food supply. This view has been reflected in Malthus' writing. When he writes, I am again going to quote Malthus, "It is the constant tendency in all animated life to increase beyond the nourishment prepared for it. does a situation of imbalance will come, which ultimately leads to a overpopulation, because population is increasing in a geometrical rate, food supply is increases in a arithmetic rate. So this gap will create a situation of imbalance. Are you getting my point? Population, geometrical rate, it is increasing, but food supply is in very arithmetic rate, so it is increasing in a very slow rate. So this geometrical versus arithmetic rate will create a disbalance between the food supply and the population. This control of overpopulation in resulting from the imbalance between population and food supply, Malthus suggested that we have to control the growing population rate, and to control that he had suggested two kind of checks. First one is positive check and the second one is preventive check. Learners, please remember and tell with me, okay? Positive check and preventive check, okay? What is positive check? Disasters like famine, earthquake, vice, misery, disease, flood, etc. took life of many people and death rate increases in the society. These are positive checks which are taken by nature, thus there are natural calamities which try to maintain balance between population and food supply. Second one is preventive check. Preventive checks are man-made provisions to control the birth rate. Moral restraints and various birth control measures like raising the age of marriage, celibacy, etc. are some of the preventive checks mentioned by Malthus. Okay, so according to Malthus, this imbalance, population, food supply, this imbalance we have to control. So according to Malthus, by two measures we can control. One is positive check, other one is preventive check. So positive check, according to Malthus, the natural calamity, nature will try to control the human population by the own way, like natural calamities, earthquake, and this by this way they are trying to control the population growth. And second one is the man-made measures like celibacy, late marriage. So by these approaches we can control the population, right? So I have told you earlier that the inner clergyman of Thomas Robert Malthus was very activated in his theoretical doctrines. So when he was talking about the natural calamities and the moral restraints in productivity process, it was actually the inner clergyman that within Thomas Robert Malthus was talking, right? So we cannot control according to Malthus, we cannot control the population by using contraceptive. According to Thomas Robert Malthus, these contraceptive methods are conjugal fraud, right? So this contraceptive method has been referred as conjugal fraud, very big statement. So only by moral restraint, controlling ourselves, we can control population, but don't use the contraceptive methods. Who said this? The inner clergyman within Thomas Robert Malthus said this. So according to Malthus, preventive checks are always in operation in a civilized society. He wrote, in proportion as mankind rises above the conditions of the beast, population is restrained by the fear of want rather than by want itself. The theoretical doctrine of Malthus on the human population and what we have discussed in the above discussion can be understood with these points, that Thomas Robert Malthus was very worried about the increasing number of population. So according to him, this increasing number of population will have an impact on the food supply. So we have to check this. How we can check this? We can check this with two measures. One is the natural measures, one is the artificial measures. The natural measures are the positive checks and the artificial measures are the preventive checks. Okay, so according to Malthus, by these two checks we can control the human population. But this theory has been gone through a severe amount of criticism. So let us discuss about the criticism. Through his book Essays on the Population Studies, Malthus revolted against the previously optimism shared by his earlier theories that a perfect state could be attained of human restraint could be removed. Malthus objected that the pressure of increasing population on the food supply would destroy perfection and balance of the world, and it would be ultimately resulted with great misery. If population is increasing and we are not checking the population, look at the situation of the world, it will have an impact, right? Malthus was severely criticized for these pessimistic views. He was severely criticized because he was talking about the moral restraint, he was talking about the checks, he was talking about controlling the human population. So let us discuss in details about various criticism that Malthus had faced. Okay? The doctrine of Malthus have discussed and scrutinized by different scholars, and as a result of many severe criticism have appeared against the theory. He has been severely criticized for his pessimistic outlook towards the study of the population growth. According to Briggs and Jordan, I want to quote Mr. Briggs and Jordan, that Malthus is to judge as a prophet rather than a historian and an economist rather than a statistician. Some of the criticism against the theory have been mentioned in the following part, which I am going to discuss. In advanced countries, Malthusian theory has not proved to be true. In developed or advanced countries, where due to the application of modern science and technology, production of food supply increases at a higher rate, and that is why increasing population did not exceed the increasing food supply as predicted by Malthus in his theoretical doctrine. So according to Malthus, it was diminishing return. But he was not sure about the scientific principles. Later scientific principles have been developed where the productivity has been increasing by applying various scientific measures. Second criticism, we can say that Malthusian theory is based on the law of diminishing return, which states that with every additional application of labor and capital in the same plot of land, total output arise from that plot will be decreased. So this is the diminishing return. Malthus has overlooked the possibility of scientific improvement in agriculture, which may cause increasing returns instead of diminishing return. Again, it has been said that Malthus had overlooked the scientific improvements and scientific applicability in the agricultural land. The spread of literacy, growth and development of culture tend to control the growth of population in a country. Illiteracy and lack of proper education is a major parameter for overpopulation in a country, but these issues have been totally ignored by Malthus. Malthus has suggested certain unnatural means and methods of checking population growth. If these are really followed, then human behavior is bound to become unnatural. He was talking about celibacy, he was talking about late marriage, he was talking about forceful restraint ourselves forcefully from the sexual orientation, which is very unnatural. So it may lead to an unnatural situation. Next point, Malthus thought that any addition to population was undesirable, but since man is a source of labor, sometimes large number means greater wealth, power and strength. These issues also been overlooked by Malthus. The Malthusian approach on population is based only on the relationship between population and food supply, but he has overlooked the fact that population is not based only on the food supply, but actually with the total wealth of the country. If a country is rich materially and even it does not produce enough food for its population, it can feed the people well by importing foodstuffs in exchange for its product or money. Thus, the very basis of the Malthusian doctrine has been nullified. Next point. Malthus was primarily a religious person who had emphasized mainly on moral restraint to control population, which is basically a philosophical doctrine rather than a scientific implications. From the beginning, I have said that the inner clergyman of Malthus has been reflected in various aspects of his theory. He has failed to visualize that human beings would invent various contraceptives and other artificial family planning devices for control population. Moral restraint alone cannot able to control population. So this is actually the Malthusian theory of population, right? We have analyzed how he was talking about the increasing size of population and its pressure on the food supply. But he has been severely criticized for his views. Although Malthusian theory of population has been severely criticized on many grounds, we cannot deny the fact that the relevance of the theory has been revived over time and again. The contribution of Malthus can never be ignored from the study of history of population growth. Malthus is credited for being the first thinker who thoroughly and systematically applied the inductive method to study the social science and human population. In fact, his theory has been regarded at the base, and other theories have been regarded as pre-Malthusian, Malthusian, post-Malthusian and neo-Malthusian. It was his theory that made both his supporters as well as critics realize the importance of and need for the collection of information for the study of population trends and for any investigation into relationship between size and growth of population and social and economic conditions. Lastly, I want to quote Charles Emil Stengelt, who has remarked regarding the theory of Malthus. I want to quote him like this: Malthus' work was a great one, written in an opportune time, and though it cannot be claimed to any considerable originality as far as the theories presented and concerned, it was successful in that it showed more fully, perhaps more clearly, and certainly more effectively than had any previous attempts that population depends on subsistence or food, and its increase is checked by want, vice, disease, as well as by moral restraints or prudence. So you cannot deny the fact of Malthus. In fact, today, till date, the overpopulation may not have direct impact on the food supply, but it is affecting the other aspect of the society. So in the year 1798, he was talking about the problem of overpopulation. So you may ask the question, Malthus' theory of population was a very easy theory, very generic theory. It is a very easy theory, dear learners. But we should remember the time, space, and context in which he was talking about his theoretical doctrines he was presenting to us, and therefore from this platform I want to thank Thomas Robert Malthus for his contribution towards the growth of different population studies. So dear learners, with this we have come to the conclusion of today's discussion, and we hope that you have understood the perspective of Malthus regarding population growth, changes, and also about various criticism against Malthusian perspective. In the next video, we shall be discussing the post-Malthusian theories. So where Malthus had stopped, the post-Malthusian approaches had begun. And in the next module, we will discuss it in detail. So see you in the next video. Thank you very much. Thank you.